and I also kept beating them to it. Actually, quite excited.
Humanity first. Always.
Prehistoric Emergence refers to an event in which numerous animals, once believed to be extinct for millions of years, have suddenly reappeared through unexplained openings such as caves, deep holes, and blue holes. Ladies and gentlemen, I am quite excited to get into today's video, I tell ya. It's always an exciting day when it comes time to return to the world of analog horror and dinosaurs, especially that of the series Prehistoric Emergence, created by Azun Studios. We have been following this series closely since its initial arrival, and boy has it been getting better and better ever since. Starting off as a series of slideshows showing off various prehistoric creatures, followed by some fun facts, to becoming full found footage narratives, full of super impressive animated creatures, and added scares that just make the whole series much more horrifying. The last batch of tapes we had covered was when the quality really started to jump, with the last tape, Vessel of Terror, coming off as the prehistoric magnum opus so far. Speaking of which, I'll have the links to all previous prehistoric videos linked down below. This series really manages to separate itself from the rest of all other dinosaur analog horrors. Most of the time, we're just taken into the universe of Jurassic Park, which is very cool and all, but it's really refreshing when we get to explore a completely new world. And just a couple days ago did we get the newest entry into the prehistoric story. Interestingly enough, this is actually acting as the Season 3 premiere of the series, so I'm especially excited to see where we decide to go from where we left off, where Officer Gray was able to aura farm so hard he killed a Utahraptor with only his knife. Little side note here, speaking of Jurassic Park, I just got my hands on both the books, so you know I will be reading those very soon. The time has finally come, I know, but now I am ever so much closer to getting the full Jurassic experience. Once that starts, I'll also probably leave my book thoughts as I go along whenever a dinosaur video comes out. But as always, be sure to check out Azun Studios to catch yourself up on all things Prehistoric Emergence before diving on over here for us to brave these horrors as one. But without further ado, let's put on our protective gear, equip our anti-dino spray just in case, and head back into the terrifying world of Prehistoric Emergence. But before I let you get too far, just wanted to say if you're new here and enjoy what you're watching, be sure to hit all those neat buttons down below as it really helps support the channel. I'll also have linked in the description below our socials and the 4-player gaming channel where we dive into the terrifying world of horror video games. But anyways, now you can pass through. My prehistoric roommate. Thankfully, the first thing we are met with this tape is a recap of prior events that should be important to remember. At least they're making it easy. Let's catch up, shall we? In the last couple entries, we learned that GPAC announced that they are going to be mobilizing global military forces to manage the prehistoric emergence. We cut to a few clips from Vessel of Terror showing just that, Officer Patch and Gray on their hunt for the Utahraptor. We also get another glimpse at the giant sauropod that the one lady was trying to capture on camera. Wasn't that a good idea? We are then reminded that France is experiencing a massive surge in pest populations, and it's been devastating the country's crops. As a result, GPAC has deployed a specialized force who are armed with what's being called an experimental pesticide. This pesticide is designed to eliminate insects the size of the Meganeura and smaller. For those who recall, the Meganeura are those giant dragonflies you see running around. However, the public is rightfully concerned over their use of this experimental, and highly likely untested, pesticide. To make matters even worse, GPAC isn't even disclosing what the ingredients of the pesticide are, or what the potential side effects could be, leading to the public's concerns starting to mount up high. I am definitely very curious to see where this tape goes from here. In the last tape, we got to see our two officers go to work. However, it became clear near the end that Command were a bunch of jackasses, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a different side of GPAC altogether very soon. One that is likely to cause even more problems than the prehistoric creatures themselves, if you can believe it or not. We are then shown the classic opening to Prehistoric Emergence, featuring the ominous description. However, we are then taken to what looks to be a more vlog-style content, this time from someone prepping some food, supposedly getting ready to feed something named Arthur. Oh dear, I think I know where this is going. We watch as he crunches up the kale, and he comments about how it's been hard to find food that hasn't been contaminated by the pesticide. Sounds like the insects aren't the only crop problem. Our character reveals that he had just quit his job about 2 weeks ago, but it was necessary because he has been taking care of a growing prehistoric creature. Oh no. Oh no. Because of this, it sounds like he has been struggling a bit financially. I doubt feeding one of these things is very cheap. He then has an issue he has to bring up with us. Apparently, tomorrow is an important day in France. Something called the Exile Manifestation is occurring. Apparently, it sounds like this is a mass protest to demand that GPAC leave France, and it's all because of that experimental pesticide. Our cameraman claims that the pesticide has been working, Sure, the Meganeura and other various pests are getting wiped out, but it is also going after essentially every small animal. We are then shown some very unfortunate photos of people's pets just dead in the street. Yeah, GPAC would be facing quite the storm right about now. He points out that even if you don't care about these animals being killed, there is still a high risk that you yourself could be getting sick with some unknown disease because of this crap. We see reports that show cancer rates are rising, and our poor bee populations are getting taken out. Not the bees. He then claims that the news has been pushing an apocalypse narrative. The emergence is certainly serious. However, extinction shouldn't be the solution, but adaptation. I can kinda see where you are coming from. However, my opinion may change drastically once a T-Rex comes barging in. We're then shown a photo of who I can only guess is our cameraman hanging out with one of the Meganeura. Man, more power to you, but I won't be in that position, that's for damn sure. He says the whole reason this vlog was started was to show that humanity and prehistoric life could coexist. However, it is now time to feed whoever this Arthur is. We start to head down into the basement with the plate of kale. Once down, we set the plate on the floor. He says he is acting a bit shy today, so he plans to just leave the bowl in front of the dark room. Kinda like the ending to the Babadook. However, he says he will switch to a feed cam so we can all bear witness. See, when he said feed cam, I thought we would get a top-down view from high up. But no, we are met with probably one of the most haunting angles you can imagine given what's about to happen next. That is an absolute fuck no. It couldn't have been anything else. It just had to be an Arthropleura. We learn that these guys are responsible for 0 human casualties. But still, they look freaky as shit. God, I hate the T-Rex. But looking up images of this thing is probably going to put this monstrous millipede at number 2. We are then taken back to the vlog, and this looks like a bit of a Q&A style video. Funnily enough, we get a few cameos in this scene. First is Dino X86 asking the right questions. For those who remember, Dino X86 was the guy who made those really cool Jurassic Park found footage tapes, featuring the evil T-Rex. We just recently covered the D-Rex video as a matter of fact. Our cameraman answers his question, however. Arthur is an Arthropleura borealis. He says that there was never proof they existed until the emergence. We then see the next comment is made by Paleo Void, the creator of the Cicada Codex. He describes that Arthur's bright colors are probably a warning for predators. They are even able to survive low temps. We then see Azun himself asking how the two of them met. How meta? Apparently they met a few months back, sometime after the Meganeura first arrived in France. He would apparently leave raisins for birds, but little did he know he was going to attract Arthur. Then one day he comes down the stairs and sees Arthur in his fucking house. How he didn't lose his mind is beyond me. Arthur then begins to show himself in the background, and God, I don't know if I'll ever get used to the way he looks. He would apparently frequently let Arthur outside, but he would just come right back in. And apparently, he only sees beauty when he looks at Arthur. More power to you, man. We then get to learn a bit more about his backstory. He mentions his parents hate everything involving the emergence. This is due to them losing their home to GPAC's zoning law, meaning they were too close to one of the holes and had to be relocated. We are then taken to our next segment. We can see as our vlogger has finished their protest signs. Global Prehistoric Affairs Circus. That'll show him. Isn't this France? We then hear a loud bang at the door. Apparently it's Arthur.
Actually, quite excited. Arthur, none!
We learn he has been pretty antsy to go outside, which probably isn't a good idea to let him out anymore. However, it's time to go to the protest. We learn that the exile manifestation reached an attendance of over 450,000. Now that's a good turnout. We return to our footage and can hear that the protest went great. Interestingly enough, some of them even recognized our vlogger. They claim Arthur gives them hope. Him coexisting is proof that others can too. But now it's time to head back inside. However, first, he looks around for Arthur's droppings. Instead, however, he comes across something very different. Turns out Arthur is a chick and has laid her eggs. Our vlogger is ecstatic at the idea. He says he will have to take a vlog break as he takes care of all these new creatures. We then cut to 7 days later. Our vlogger is back with an update for us. We learn Arthur is keeping the eggs warm, but we are a little worried about how we are going to afford all this. This is a lot of creatures to feed. However, this is when we hear a knock at our front door. We approach and ask who it is, but we aren't met with an answer. We go to open the door, and I certainly don't like who is here. Great, these assholes. We learn our vlogger's name is Antoine, and unfortunately, these guys claim they have gotten reports that he has been harboring a prehistoric creature. And also, he has been linked to several online posts supposedly inciting retaliation against GPAC. They order us to comply as they enter our residence to euthanize Arthur. Back up, Jack. We can see the pesticide sprayer in hand. We try to say that it isn't true, but then the two turn to talk amongst themselves. They try to make us put the phone away, and to be expected, these guys are just assholes.
Refusal to comply constitutes obstruction of GPAC investigation. Is that what you want?
I hope one of these guys isn't gray. We try to make them show a search order. However, according to these douchebags, the nature of the charge puts them under GPAC jurisdiction, so no search order. Oh, so that's how that works. Antoine tries to stand his ground, but that unfortunately doesn't go very well for him.
I'm sorry, but No, please, no!
That scene was actually pretty uncomfortable to watch. Props to the acting there. It looks like Antoine got shoved pretty hard. Honestly, he probably did. But we are now in the POV of these GPAC jackasses. One got done checking upstairs, leaving only the basement to be searched. I gotta be honest, the guy whose POV we are following really sounds like Private Gray. I don't know if it's just a case of a similar voice or if it is supposed to be him. When the other GPAC officer, who he calls Grunt, shows excitement to exterminate, our other officer seems more indifferent, more in line with Gray's character.
Thought you'd want to join in on the fun.
Let's get this over with.
But as of right now, I will just believe he sounds similar until we get some hardcore proof that it's actually Gray. We begin to head down, pesticide in hand. Grunt makes a comment on how after this mission, they hope to go back to the States, to which he is reminded that the creatures over there aren't any less dangerous. The two then arrive into the infamous room, Arthur's room. You better hope he isn't on the ceiling or some shit. The two end up stumbling upon the eggs, and Mama Arthur enters the ring. Unfortunately, she gets sprayed to hell. Hopefully, she's not dead. Our scene cuts out, however, and we are brought to an Azun news segment. Our reporter is telling the story about how Antoine has been arrested in his home by GPAC officers. She begins to interview Grunt and asks what led to his arrest. He claims they received evidence that he was harboring a prehistoric creature deemed hazardous. When asked what happened to Arthur, he says they just conducted standard protocol. She then asks where Antoine is, to which we learn that he has been detained. Unfortunately, we can read the headline down below that says Arthur has been confirmed to be neutralized. You were one ugly bastard, but you did not deserve such a fate. However, this is when the reporter drops quite the truth nuke.
Mr. Rue was live streaming when you arrived. Were you aware of that?
No, we were not.
Good thinking, Antoine. She begins to question him on why he didn't present a search order, and forced their way in. Grunt tries to claim that it would have been unethical to wait for authorization. He is essentially pulling shit out of his ass. The reporter calls him out on this, saying the creature was an arthropleura and they feed on plant matter, so what makes them dangerous? He tries to generalize the situation, saying that all prehistoric life is dangerous, as they pull up a photo of Antoine literally taking a photo next to Arthur. How dangerous, am I right? The reporter doubles down and asks what specific threats do arthropleuras themselves pose, and this is when Grunt begins to stumble. His only answers are that they are unnatural to the ecosystem and that they come out of holes. Solid answers there, buddy. She asks again what the threat is, and this is when Grunt breaks a bit, saying they are trying to prevent another Billings massacre, aka that T-Rex attack, and this interview gets a lot more tense.
What threat did Arthur pose?
Antoine Rue is breeding these things, inciting violence against GPAC operations.
The reporter tries to defend Antoine, but Grunt then turns to the platform he had, claiming he used it to actively sabotage their livelihoods, going so far as to call him a traitor to humanity.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
The reporter asks again where Antoine is being held, and we learn just at some random classified detention center. We learn his supporters are concerned for his safety, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like Grunt just threatened everybody.
Will Antoine Rue receive a fair trial?
Mr. Rue will be given the treatment all prehistoric sympathizers do.
It seems in his world, it's humans versus prehistoric life, like Antoine was talking about earlier in this tape. Grunt sees this as an invasion against humanity, and so humanity must unite against this supposed common enemy, ending off the tape by just saying, humanity first, always. However, we are still left off with one small post-credit scene. That's right, baby. Arthur is still alive. At least I think that is Arthur. He does look a tad small, but it can't be one of the eggs already. That'd be too fast. However, that was the latest entry in Prehistoric Emergence. And man, what an interesting direction the series has gone in. I didn't expect to follow this vlogger who cared so much about prehistoric life. We have heard from other characters before who show a lot of interest, but never to this extent. And it seems like a lot more people are on board with the idea of coexisting than GPAC wants to admit. To be fair, When it comes to the T-Rex and actual very dangerous carnivores, something needs to be done. But if it's these random harmless species like the mammoth or, God help me, the horrifying Arthroplurus, then just let them be a part of the sequel to nature. I like how this entry still didn't give up on trying to be tense and scary still. Even though Antoine made it clear that whatever was in his basement was harmless, the whole scene is still frightening to watch as he goes downstairs. And man, Arthur's first appearance is definitely not easy to stomach the first go-around. The whole time I was expecting Arthur to snap, to attack Antoine and prove his point wrong. However, that never happened and Arthur remained harmless, which I actually like. It is also clear that if we thought GPAC were assholes before, they definitely are now. The fact that the government can just create a sub-entity like GPAC and just give them all this power is literally insane to think about. Thankfully, this isn't something we have to deal with in real life. Overall, this was a great start to Season 3 of Prehistoric Emergence. We have entered a new era, potentially trying to save the Prehistoric Emergence. Who would have guessed? It's clear the quality keeps going up and up, and I am so excited to see how much the series continues to improve. As to be expected, I highly recommend this series if you haven't checked it out already. It's definitely worth it. However, that'll probably be about it for this week's video. I thank you all so much for watching, and as always, be sure to keep on leaving me recommendations down below, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord where Arthur is welcomed. But if you'll excuse me, I got a GPAC protest to attend.